Hey folks, it's your buddy Mike Messier. Just saw Field of Dreams on the big screen. Yes, we're not in a time warp. We are in 2024 as I'm recording this movie from 1994, I believe, on the big screen. I guess 30-year anniversary as we're approaching April of 2024, spring training. So, should you go see this movie if you haven't seen it? I have seen it before, never like this, never on the big screen. And when I've seen it, think I've seen it in chunks and pieces, and I don't recall seeing the first opening montage. Like, that seemed very new to me. And I think even going into this theater today, I was a little hesitant because it's a beautiful day here in Florida and there's so many wonderful things I could be doing. But if you go see it, you will like it. The voice was telling me to go see this movie on the big screen, matinee. Plenty of day left, plenty of night left. And so I went and saw it. And so I thought I'd be the only one in the theater, but there was actually two people in the theater. Seemed to be a couple of some variation, and they seemed to be enjoying the film. I enjoyed the film. It's interesting when you see these movies that are from, prior generations. This movie, I believe, like I said, was released in 1994. Maybe it was released earlier than that. But in any event, there's a lot of, anytime you have pop culture stuff, it's like everything that the people that are creating pop culture, whether it's movies or television, their history, their childhood, their teens is always like 20 years earlier than the material you're watching. So you're kind of watching nostalgia on top of nostalgia because this movie, while made in the 1990s, I believe, references a lot of stuff to the 60s, flower power, peace, love, all that good stuff. So it is nostalgia upon nostalgia. I mean, if you go back to the TV show Happy Days from the 70s, that show was about teenagers in the 1950s. So if you watch that show now, 50 years later, and it's a nostalgia show for 20 years earlier. And I'm telling you, from all points in between, I can say that there was a hell of a lot more difference, say, in the 1960s to the 1970s, or the 1950s to the 1960s, at least here in the continental USA, a hell of a lot more difference in those two decades than, say, the 2010s to the 2020s. Okay, it seems like we've been kind of in a cultural vacuum. And while things do change and wonderful things like the pandemic and internet and social media do influence stuff, it still seems to me, at least, the aesthetics of 100, 200 years ago changed quicker back then. I could be wrong, okay? But anyway, so this movie, you can use words like optimism, you could use words like earnest. There is definitely a male perspective to this film. I mean, the main character, Kevin Costner, once again in a baseball movie. Bull Durham, I'm trying to remember, was he in, I think he was in Tin Cup, but that was a golf movie. And there was another movie I don't think I've seen, a baseball movie he did years later, which I think was about a baseball player like trying to throw a perfect game or some such thing. So for whatever the fuck reason, at some point in the late 80s and 1990s, Kevin Costner became like Mr. Baseball. And if you really think about it, maybe the 1990s were the last decade that baseball was really America's game. I mean, I think it's fair to say at this point, if America and the world, I'll just speak for America because I think worldwide, the other football is really the number one sport. You can make a case in some regard, Brazil and Japan, maybe mixed martial arts is the number one sport now. But baseball, I don't think so, and I think not even in the United States. I mean, baseball drags behind football, the NFL, and a lot of other things. Maybe not a lot of other things, but I don't think baseball has the pull that it used to, and there's probably a million reasons for that. But for those of us that remember, or those of us that want to be nostalgic for those days gone by when people would sit around the radio and listen to the box scores and take the box scores and give a shit, a movie like this reminds us of the poetry of the game. So what can I say? So I mean, it's a great film. It's interesting because what I do remember about the time that I had seen this movie, I recall what confused me about it was kind of this side journey that we go on with Kevin Costner's character. I believe his name is it Joe, or is it John or some such thing, and Terrence Mann, who is the character played by the always wonderful James Earl Jones, known as, to many of us, as Darth Vader, voice of, and so many other things. So it's kind of interesting to see this, an unlikely pairing perhaps, like James Earl Jones playing buddy with Kevin Costner. Another thing that I think we forget about, or at least I do, is Ray Liotta as Shoeless Joe Jackson. Ray unfortunately passed away a few years ago, most known as Henry Hill in Goodfellas. I think a lot of us, and I guess I do, we kind of forget about this performance of Ray Liotta as Shoeless Joe Jackson, a real person, a human being. But here he is. And I think, it's actually a very effective performance by Ray Liotta, playing the character very straight. I mean, he is playing kind of a mystical ghost, as it were, kind of a spirit of a unsatisfied spirit of Shoeless Joe Jackson, a player that was suspended permanently from Major League Baseball because of what they call the Chicago Black Sox. They threw the 1919 World Series. And Costner's character, Joe, makes a case that maybe Shoeless Joe wasn't part of that, or maybe he was paid but didn't actually throw the games, or whatever the fuck. But we see these, spirits led by Shoeless Joe. He brings his teammates to the field of play, and so on and so forth. So, now obviously there are some things in this story that are not exactly, from my memory of it, not addressed, first of all, and not to be woke or politically correct, but just pointing out the truth of it all. I believe the Major League Baseball was not integrated. It was segregated at that time. So this entire ball team is a bunch of white guys, all the spirits. And yeah, you might be thinking, well, gee whiz, Mike, why are we even talking about it? Just because I fucking noticed it. And the Terrence Mann character, he doesn't point that out. Everyone just kind of whitewashes that topic, so to speak. So, in any regard, I mean, the movie is great. There's an interesting kind of couple of actors, like, I'm sure there is somewhere on fucking YouTube a series like Forgotten 90s Actors. Amy Madigan as the wife. I mean, she is really a forgotten 90s actress, as far as I know, unless she's doing some Netflix show that I don't watch that you people do. I don't watch. I don't know what she's up to. Hopefully she's still alive and kicking, or punching. No one says alive and punching. Everyone's kicking. What's with the kicking with people that are alive? But Amy Madigan, she was like one of these go-to actresses, often playing the wife. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of like the plight of the 90s actress. Like, unless you were, Meryl Streep or Nicole Kidman, perhaps, or Julia Roberts, you were most often playing the wife, But Amy Madigan as the wife, and this is the type of, shit that we used to get away with, so to speak. The wife is very supportive of the Kevin Costner character. He's having these... he's hearing voices and having dreams that he should build a baseball stadium and wipe out their cornfield, of which they need to pay their bills and put their little daughter through college. And the wife's like, I think you're crazy, but go right ahead. Okay, find a wife like that these days. Not even the movies could you find a wife that supportive and deferential. That does not exist anymore. I mean, she would be on fucking Instagram, you know, taking pictures of herself before she would do anything like supporting her crazy husband to build a ball field. Okay, so we have that whole deal. It's always nice when, like, you know, that sometimes you can see the manipulation of the audience. Like, instead of having us, oh god damn it, I'm trying to do my video. Instead of having a son in this movie, the Costner character has a daughter. You know what I mean? That's like kind of a manipulation. Like, and the daughter, of course, soaks up all the baseball knowledge and talks to the ghosts and all that crap. Like, you know, he could have a son. They could do that, but, you know, to kind of bridge that gap, you know, you have it as a daughter. And we, as the audience, kind of become the daughter in a sense, because a lot of the exposition, meaning the story before the story, the facts of this Shoeless Joe's history and all this stuff is we hear it in these wonderful voiceovers that the Costner character is telling his young daughter, so that we as the audience get informed in an entertaining way, so that we don't feel like fucking idiots. Okay, so now we know we're in on the fucking storyline, because we're hearing things as the daughter. We're living vicariously through the daughter's ears to be informed of the history of Shoeless Joe. The other actor that I said, oh, and also I noticed that the daughter in the credit was listed as Gabby Hoffman. Hasn't she become something? I mean, this is 30 years ago. She must be 35 or 40 years old at this point. Hasn't she had a wonderful career? I mean, I'm trying to remember who she would be, but I think she grew up to be an adult actress of some variant, so she must have done something at some point. I don't think she was one of those kid actors who just left the business, but who knows. The brother of Amy Madigan's wife character, so Costner's brother-in-law, redheaded gentleman. He does look like Madigan. They both have red hair. I really hate the term for redheaded people that people use, which I think is so stupid. He's a ginger. I fucking hate that goddamn term. It's so stupid for calling redheaded people, oh, he's a ginger. What the fuck? But in any event, he's a ginger, she's a ginger. They're both redheaded fucks. They're brother and sister. But that guy was like one of those 90s actors. Like, what the fuck happened to him? He was often in things as like the brother or the friend. I believe he was in some type of movie. I want to say it was called She's Having a Baby. Was that Kevin Bacon or some other asshole and Molly Ringwald? But I don't think it was Kevin Bacon. I think it was some other fuck. And Molly Ringwald were a young couple having a baby. Back when that was a scandalous thing, not just everybody. So in any event, that redheaded gentleman was in a lot of things. Not David Caruso, but like some other guy that looked like a brother or just like some asshole. So he's in this movie. James Earl Jones, I'm trying to figure out how old he was in this thing, because the way I recalled it, he was like old and frail, but not really. I mean, he looks in this movie pretty vibrant. And I do like his character of the Terrence Mann character. Oh, how can I forget? It's Burt Lancaster, isn't it? As like this Doc Graham, like this young ball player who only played like one game or one season in the majors and then became a doctor and was like this wonderful guy. And here he, as a ghost, he kind of sacrifices his baseball career to rescue Costner's daughter from choking on a hot dog. Now it's a little like that scenario was a little all over the place. Like the two guys are having a fight. The brother-in-law scoops up his niece, and then Costner's like, "Don't you touch my daughter." And then the daughter takes a back bump, like she goes flying off the stands and plummets to the ground. So you're like, oh shit, she's like dead, or she's paralyzed, or she's got a concussion. But nope, she's just choking on a hot dog. So, I don't know. I mean, children, they say, are pliable, but I don't think they should be taking bumps off a fucking 10-foot thing. because I would suspect like a neck injury or something, not a goddamn choking on a hot dog. I'm just laughing because the movies, like I said, that scene in particular is just goofy. I mean, you gotta, and then fucking Lancaster Doc pulls the, like, whacks her in the back, and then he like pulls out this fucking hot dog chunk and he just throws it. It's like, ugh. So anyway, I guess some bird will eat that fucking half-digested hot dog chunk from this child. What if there was some like film artifact room that had like that fucking regurgitated hot dog chunk from Field of Dreams? Anyway, good movie, makes you cry, makes you laugh, earnest. Like I said, doesn't solve all the world's problems, doesn't solve all of baseball's problems. It's part fantasy, it's part love story. It's really the epitome of a guy with a problem, movie making. Guy with the problem. He doesn't want to be like his father. So this is a big theme, that the Costner guy, although he has a wife and a kid and a farm, he doesn't want to do nothing of value. Like, you can't say this shit now. Like, you couldn't say that as a middle-aged white man. You couldn't say that to your loving bride who's birthed you this child and you are living on a fucking farm. You can't say, honey, you and the kid and the farm, it's just doesn't mean much. I need to make a baseball field. Like, sorry, honey, you and our daughter from our loins have very little value. I need to make a fucking baseball field so that I do something important with my life. The absurdity, the arrogance. I mean, it's great. I mean, it's really, you know, and only an asshole like Kevin Costner in the best possible way could get away with this shit. Like, because you're sitting there like, yeah, he's right. You know, like, the wife, the kid, fuck that. Baseball's, that's important. And like chasing down Terrence Mann in Boston and taking him to a fucking Red Sox game and all this horse shit. Like, I just love it. I love I love the warped perspective, because it's truly, I don't want to, because I know so many people from India and other wonderful countries are watching my Mike's Instant Movie Reviews, and you're all doing your part by sharing the URLs. I know that you're doing that. But, I mean, is that just an American trait to, like, always want something different? Like, whatever the fuck we have, we could have a wife and a kid and we want to be a single guy. We could be a single guy and we want to have a wife and a kid. We could be rich and we want to be poor. We could be poor and we want to be rich. We are just never fucking happy, okay? So, I mean, you know, these people, I watched this 90 Day Fiancé show, and these poor folks are coming to this country expecting everything to be awesome, and everything's just as fucked up here as it is over there. You might as well stay home, you know, because we're just as goofy and fucked up as you folks. You know what I mean? We just have more McDonald's and more strip malls. I mean, you know, you have more whatever the fucks, cappuccino houses or whatever the fucks, or discotheques at 2 o'clock in the morning in Kiev or whatever the fuck you do. So I don't know. I'm just saying, you know, it's the land of milk and honey, but the milk is sour and the honey is expensive. God damn. But anyway, this type of movie allows you to escape from all these responsibilities of being an American. It allows you to enjoy the game of baseball. It allows you to relieve yourself of all guilt from being an American, and you can just watch the fucking movie. So in that regard, it's very successful. Also, I should note that it's also better to see any movie, and I always say this to assholes when they watch my wonderful short films on One Man and a Camera Films. Don't watch it on your phone, at least watch it on a TV. Basically, every single movie, every single everything is pretty much better on a big screen than a phone or a fucking TV or a computer or a tablet. You know, all these assholes, you know, if you're going to go see something like Dune 2, you might as well go see it in the big screen and so forth. I mean, you might as well go see these movies on the big screen. So Mike Messier, one Mike Messier, look at my wonderful logos, One Man and a Camera Films, One Pro Wrestling and Sports Fan YouTube channel, MikeMessier.com. Scroll to the bottom and buy my books.